Beloved, I want you to hear this today. God has not forgotten you. Every loss you have suffered, every dream that slipped through your fingers, every opportunity that seemed to close forever, every relationship that was broken is not the end of your story. God is a God of restoration, a God who takes what the enemy meant for harm and turns it into a testimony of victory. Sometimes we look at our lives and see only empty hands. We wonder, why did this happen to me? Why did I lose so much? But the truth, beloved, is that God's timing is perfect. He sees the bigger picture. He knows the battles we cannot see. And He is preparing a harvest in our lives that is far greater than anything we have lost. Listen carefully, losses are not punishments. They are often divine pauses, moments when God is repositioning you, strengthening your faith, and preparing you for something better. When Joseph was sold into slavery, he could not see God's plan. When Job lost everything, he could not understand why. But in the fullness of time, God recovered everything for them and more. But I tell you today, do not rush God. Do not force your timing. Trust His timing. The restoration He brings will be complete and glorious. What was lost will not just return, it will return multiplied. Your finances, your health, your relationships, your peace, your joy. God is able to restore all that the enemy has stolen. But you must walk in faith, pray with persistence, and believe in His word. Do not look at the shadows of yesterday. Do not fear the emptiness of today. Lift your eyes to the heavens, for your God is working behind the scenes. He is weaving your story into a testimony that will inspire others, a testimony that will glorify His name. Your breakthrough is near. Your restoration is coming. Trust Him, even when it seems impossible. Let me encourage you, the Lord is faithful. He will bring back what was lost, often in ways that surpass your imagination. He will bless the works of your hands. He will heal broken hearts. He will open doors you never knew existed. And the key is, trust His timing. Do not lose heart, for the same God who turned the Red Sea into a path, who multiplied the loaves and fishes, who raised Lazarus from the dead, is the same God who will restore your life. He will recover everything you have lost. He is working on your behalf right now, even when you cannot see it. Have you ever wondered why things don't happen when you want them to? Why you pray, you ask, you labor, and yet the breakthrough seems delayed? I want you to understand today, beloved, that God's timing is perfect. It is never early and it is never late. It is always exactly right, even when your heart cannot see it. Think about a farmer who plants seeds in the soil. He cannot force the seeds to grow faster. He cannot demand a harvest before the season is ready. He waters them, nurtures them, protects them from pests, but the timing of the growth is not in His hands. Similarly, God is working in your life, and His timing is flawless. Look at Joseph in the Bible. He was sold as a slave by his own brothers, thrown into prison for a crime he did not commit, and forgotten by those he helped. Yet God's timing was perfect. Every delay, every setback, every hardship was positioning him for the moment when he would not just regain everything lost, but rise to a position of unimaginable influence. Sometimes your loss is not a punishment, it is a preparation. The delay you face today may be the divine training ground for your tomorrow. WR. Let me give you an example from daily life. A young woman applies for her dream job and waits weeks, maybe months, for a response. She sees others being hired around her and begins to despair. She questions God, wondering why it hasn't happened yet. But perhaps God is waiting for the right company, the right role, or even the right boss who will recognize her true potential. If she had rushed into the first opportunity, she may have missed the one God had prepared perfectly for her. The timing may feel slow, but it is never wrong. Even in relationships, God's timing is perfect. You may have loved deeply, given your heart, and experienced heartbreak. You may wonder if love will ever come back, or if you will ever meet the person God has chosen for you. But God's timing works like a symphony, orchestrating meetings, encounters, and moments when you are truly ready. He will not bring the right person too soon before you are prepared, and He will not bring them too late. It is always the perfect moment for your love story to unfold. But consider a student who studies hard for an exam. They may feel frustrated because the results are not immediate. They may even fail a test they prepared for diligently. But the delay may be God's timing, giving them the opportunity to learn something essential, to develop resilience, to discover a better path than the one they initially sought. Later, they may find that the path they ended up on, seemingly delayed, leads to far greater success than the one they thought they wanted. That is God's perfect timing at work. Even in health, God's timing is precise. Someone may pray for healing or for a loved one to recover, and the wait feels unbearable. But perhaps God is teaching patience, faith, and reliance on Him. Perhaps the timing of the healing is not only about physical restoration, but also about strengthening the spirit. Imagine a man recovering from illness and finally regaining strength at a time when he can fully dedicate his life to purpose and ministry. The restoration comes not too early, not too late, but at the exact moment when he can walk in fullness. Daily life is filled with these lessons. A parent may pray for their child to find the right path in education or career. They may see their child struggle, make mistakes, and wander. Yet God's timing is perfect. He is shaping the child, building character, and opening doors that the parent could never foresee. The child may stumble now, but the ultimate success will come at God's appointed moment. Even finances follow God's perfect timing. You may pray for a promotion, a raise, or a business opportunity. You may see others prosper while your account remains empty, but perhaps God is preparing you, refining your skills, teaching discipline, or positioning you to receive a blessing that is far greater than what you imagined. The timing may feel inconvenient, uncomfortable, even unfair, but it is exactly what you need for the fullness of the blessing. Let me remind you of something very powerful. Time in God's hands is not like time in ours. We see the clock, the days, the weeks, and we panic. But God sees the end from the beginning. He knows the perfect moment when everything lost will be restored, multiplied, and glorified. Like a master artist, He is painting your life stroke by stroke, color by color, with patience, precision, and love. Your impatience cannot accelerate His plan, and your despair cannot delay His purpose. And sometimes the perfection of timing is revealed only after the fact. When you look back, you will realize that the delays, the detours, the waiting periods, they were never mistakes. They were necessary. The late train, the delayed meeting, the lost opportunity, they all converged into a moment that could only have happened when God intended. Your understanding may be limited, but God's timing is flawless. So today, if you feel lost, if you feel delayed, if you feel that life is unfair, I want you to hear this in your spirit. God's timing is perfect. He is working in the unseen, orchestrating circumstances, aligning people, and preparing your life for a breakthrough that is far greater than anything you have lost. The delays are not denials, they are divine arrangements. The waiting is not waste, it is wisdom being built. Trust Him, for He is faithful and His timing will never fail. Beloved, I want you to understand something today. Loss is not the end. I know that right now, some of you feel like your world has been shattered. You have lost jobs, relationships, money, opportunities, and dreams that you worked so hard to build. Your heart feels heavy. Your spirit is tired. But I want you to hear this in the depth of your soul. Loss is not the end. It is not the final chapter of your story. God has a way of taking what the enemy meant for harm and turning it into something beautiful, something miraculous, something beyond your imagination. Think about a farmer whose crops have failed due to a storm. He looks at the empty fields feeling hopeless. But he does not give up. He understands that this loss is not the end of his harvest season. He replants, waters, nurtures, and prepares for the next season. Sometimes God allows loss in our lives to prepare us for a greater harvest, a harvest that could never have come without the pause, the storm, the empty field. Look at the story of Job. He lost his family, his wealth, and his health. If you were in his place, would you have given up? Most people would have thought it was the end. But Job's faith did not fail. In the midst of his pain, God was at work, and in the fullness of time, he received back double of what he had lost. Beloved, what you have lost today is never the end if you remain faithful and trust in God's plan. Even in everyday life, we see this truth. A student may fail an important exam, and the world may feel like it has ended. But that failure is not the end. It is a redirection. Perhaps God is leading them to a path they could never have chosen themselves, to a career, a calling, or an opportunity that will bring them far more success than the exam ever could. Loss is not the final answer. It is often the beginning of something greater. Consider relationships. Sometimes we lose people we love dearly. A friendship ends. A marriage fails. Or a loved one passes away. The pain feels unbearable. We ask God, why me? But remember, loss is not the end. Sometimes God removes people from our lives to make space for better, to protect us from harm, or to teach us lessons we need to learn. That heartbreak is not a punishment, it is preparation. One day, the pain of that loss will turn into a story of redemption, growth, and restored joy. Even in finances, loss is not the end. You may have lost money in business, investments, or through circumstances beyond your control. You may feel like your future is shattered. But God is a God of multiplication and restoration. Like the widow in the Bible, whose small oil jar was multiplied, what you have lost is only temporary. With faith, discipline, and prayer, God can turn your financial loss into a testimony of abundance that will inspire generations. Health is another area where loss can feel final, but it is not. Someone may have been diagnosed with illness, injury, or limitation. They may have thought their dreams were over, but God specializes in miracles. Even when the world says end, God says beginning. Many testimonies have come from those who were told it was over, yet they rose stronger, healthier, and more purposeful than before. Loss is a temporary detour on the road to victory. Think about personal growth. Sometimes we lose confidence, direction, or peace of mind. We may fail in our ambitions, make mistakes, or face rejection. But each loss teaches something invaluable. Every failure, every setback, every disappointment is a seed planted by God for our character, resilience, and faith. If we respond with hope, the loss becomes the ion of our greatest successes. The end was never the intention. It was always a step toward transformation. Even in careers, loss is not the end. You may have been fired, overlooked, or rejected. You may feel invisible or undervalued. But many people who face such moments discover doors they could not have imagined. The loss redirected them to opportunities, partnerships, and paths that were far better than the ones they thought they were losing. The moment you feel like it is over may be the exact moment God is preparing your breakthrough. And sometimes loss prepares you to be a testimony. Your experience, your struggle, your pain, and even the things you lost can inspire others. When you rise from what seemed like the end, you become a living example of God's faithfulness. People will look at your life and say, if God can do this for you, He can do it for me too. Beloved, God specializes in taking endings and turning them into new beginnings, in creating beauty from ashes, in bringing victory from the valley of loss. Every moment you feel defeated, every time your heart aches over what is gone, remember this: loss is never the end. It is often the doorway to restoration, growth, and blessing. It is the opportunity for God to show His power, His love, and His faithfulness in ways you could never imagine. Your story is not finished. Your breakthrough is coming. Your restoration is on the way. Beloved, I want to tell you something so powerful today. Faith is the key. Faith is not just believing in God when things are easy. It is trusting Him when the storms rage, when the doors are closed, when your heart is heavy with doubt. Faith is the key that unlocks miracle, restores what is lost, and opens the floodgates of heaven over your life. Without faith, the promises of God remain just words on a page. With faith, mountains move, chains break, and impossible situations are made possible. Think about a child learning to walk. The child does not see the ground clearly, does not understand the danger, yet takes step after step, trusting the parent to hold them up. That is faith. That is exactly how we must approach God. Life may be uncertain, challenges may rise, but faith tells us, I will step forward because God is with me and He will not let me fall. Faith is not about what we see, it is about trusting what God says. Even in finances, faith is the key. You may feel broke, overlooked, or hopeless. Perhaps your bills are piling up and the next month looks impossible. Yet faith tells you to give, to sow seeds, to step out of fear. There is a principle in God's kingdom. When you act in faith, God acts on your behalf. I have seen men and women, even with empty pockets, give faithfully, and God returns tenfold. It may not happen instantly, but faith assures us that the harvest is coming. Faith is what turns scarcity into abundance. Consider a young student preparing for an exam they feel unprepared for. The fear, the pressure, the anxiety can be overwhelming. Yet faith says, I will study, I will pray, and I will trust God's help. Faith gives courage to continue when the odds seem impossible. Faith is the inner confidence that says, even when the situation is uncertain, victory is already guaranteed because God's word is true. That key moment of trusting beyond fear is what opens the door to success. In relationships, faith is key to restoration. Perhaps you have been hurt, betrayed, or abandoned. You may feel like giving up on love, on friendship, or on reconciliation. But faith tells you God is faithful. He can restore what is broken. He can heal hearts and open doors that seem permanently closed. I have seen families reconciled, marriages healed, friendships restored, all because someone chose faith instead of fear, hope instead of despair. Faith is the key that unlocks God's power to repair what was shattered. Even in health, faith is essential. A person may be facing illness, chronic pain, or a serious diagnosis. The doctors may have given their prognosis, but faith says, I will trust God for healing. I will speak life over my body. I will not give in to despair. Faith activates God's power in ways that are beyond human understanding. When the woman with the issue of blood reached out and touched Jesus' garment, it was faith that made her whole. Faith connects the invisible power of God to the visible world of your life. But think about careers and opportunities. You may have been overlooked, rejected, or ignored at work. You may feel invisible, undervalued, or trapped. Faith says, God is my promoter. God is my provider. I will trust Him, even when the world does not see my worth. Faith empowers you to continue, to improve, to work diligently, to prepare yourself for the moment God opens the door. Many testimonies come from those who did not give up, because faith kept them moving forward, even when everything looked hopeless. Even in daily life, faith shows up in simple acts. A mother praying over her children, believing they will succeed. A man trusting God to provide for his fam. During hard times. A student stepping into a classroom confident that God will guide their mind. These are all demonstrations of faith in action. Faith is not passive, it is bold. It speaks when the world is silent. It acts when the world hesitates. Faith believes what is unseen, holds on when it is hard, and trusts when it is inconvenient. Faith is also the key that unlocks God's timing. When you trust Him, you align with His plan. It is faith that keeps you from rushing, from forcing, from taking matters into your own hands. Faith waits, knowing that God's timing is perfect. Faith endures the storm, knowing the rainbow will come. Faith sows the seed in the dry soil, believing that the harvest is coming. Beloved, faith is not an option, it is the key. It is the very door to God's promises. Faith is what separates those who experience miracles from those who do not. It is the anchor in the storm, the light in the darkness, the courage in fear. Without faith, nothing moves. With faith, the impossible becomes possible. With faith, the lost is found, the broken is healed, the empty is filled. Faith is the key that opens every door God has prepared for you, even when the world says it is impossible. Beloved, I want you to hear this with every fiber of your being. Restoration is often greater than what was lost. God does not just give back what the enemy steals. No, He is a God of abundance, a God of multiplication, a God who delights in taking what was broken and turning it into something extraordinary. Sometimes when we suffer loss, we are focused on what we have lost, on the emptiness, on the pain. But God is always working behind the scenes to bring a restoration thaw. Tea is beyond our imagination. Think about Joseph. He was sold into slavery, falsely accused, imprisoned, and forgotten. Everything he lost seemed permanent. But God's plan was not to restore Joseph to what he had before. His plan was to elevate him far beyond it. Joseph became the savior of nations, second only to Pharaoh. Beloved, your restoration may not just return you to where you were. It may take you to a place you could never have dreamed of. Even in everyday life, we see this truth. Imagine a man who loses his job. At first, he is devastated. The bills are due, the responsibilities are heavy, and despair creeps in. But in that loss, God opens a new door, perhaps a better job, one with higher pay, more opportunities, or an environment that allows him to grow spiritually and professionally. The restoration is greater than the loss because God's vision is always wider than our understanding. Consider a student who fails an important exam or is rejected by the university of their dreams. At first, it feels like a door has closed permanently, but that rejection may lead to a better opportunity, a program that aligns more with their talents, or a school that shapes their future in ways they could never have anticipated. God's restoration often exceeds our expectations because He sees the bigger picture. In relationships, restoration is often greater than what we had before. You may have lost someone you love deeply, a partner, a friend, or a family member. The pain feels unbearable, and your heart wonders if you will ever love again or be reconciled. But God specializes in restoration that is richer and deeper. Sometimes He brings people back into your life in ways that are stronger, healthier, and more aligned with His purpose. And sometimes He brings someone new, someone better, someone who will bless your life in ways you could not have imagined. Even in finances, restoration is often greater. Perhaps you have faced bankruptcy, business failure, or financial loss. At first, it seems impossible to recover. But God is a multiplier. Like the widow with the oil, the bread in the hands of the boy who offered it, God can take the little you have left and turn it into abundance. The restored finances may surpass what you lost, because God does not restore with limitation. He restores with blessing and multiplication. Dr. Health is another area where restoration exceeds loss. You may have faced illness, injury, or limitation. At first, it feels like your dreams and abilities are gone, but God's healing power does more than just restore your health. He strengthens your body, your spirit, and your purpose. Sometimes the illness teaches lessons, builds patience, or redirects you to a life of greater service and impact. When you are fully restored, you may not just be healed, you may be equipped to do more, love more, and serve more than you ever could before. But think about personal growth and character. Sometimes loss is designed by God to teach lessons that are impossible to learn any other way. A failed relationship may teach resilience. A business setback may teach perseverance. A betrayal may teach discernment. When God restores, He does not just return what was lost. He returns a stronger, wiser, and more resilient version of you. The restoration is greater because it includes growth, understanding, and spiritual depth, even in career and opportunity. God's restoration is often beyond what we can imagine. A promotion lost may lead to a position of greater influence. A project that failed may open doors to a new career path. A mentor who left may prepare you to be your own leader. God's restoration does not just compensate for loss, it exceeds it. The delay, the pain, and the setback were not the end. They were the preparation for a miracle that is far greater than you expected. Sometimes restoration is not just about what is returned to you, it is about what God adds to your life. He may restore relationships, health, finances, and opportunities, but He also adds wisdom, favor, spiritual insight, and peace. The restoration is not just about replacing what was lost. It is about elevating you to a new level of life, purpose, and destiny. What the enemy took, God can return multiplied, glorified, and transformed for your good and for His glory. Beloved, do not measure your restoration by what you lost. Measure it by what God is about to give you, and know that His restoration is always greater. It is bigger, it is richer, it is stronger, and it is more powerful than you can imagine. The pain you endured, the loss you suffered, the setback you faced, they are not the end of your story. God is working, and His restoration is coming with abundance, favor, and glory that will leave everyone amazed. Beloved, let me tell you this today. Prayer is powerful, but prayer with persistence is unstoppable. Many people pray once, maybe twice, and when they do not see immediate results, they give up. They stop believing, they lose hope. But the Bible tells us to pray without ceasing. Prayer is not just a conversation. It is a weapon, a lifeline, a key that unlocks God's power in your life. And persistence in prayer is what moves mountains, breaks chains, and brings miracles that would otherwise remain locked. Think about the widow in the Bible who went to the judge again and again, day after day, seeking justice. The judge was reluctant at first, but her persistence moved him. How much more will your persistent prayers move the heart of your God, who loves you and is eager to bless you? Persistence in prayer is not about annoying God. It is about aligning yourself with His will, demonstrating faith, and refusing to let go until breakthrough comes. Even in daily life, we see this principle. Imagine a student preparing for an entrance exam. They study diligently, pray daily for understanding, and continue even when results seem delayed. Every time they pray, they strengthen their faith, calm their fears, and focus on the goal. That persistent prayer connects them to God's wisdom, giving them clarity, confidence, and success beyond what effort alone could achieve. Prayer with persistence is what turns preparation into victory. Think about finances. A person may be facing bills, debts, or unexpected expenses that seem impossible to cover. They pray, they ask for help, they seek guidance. Perhaps they do not see immediate results, yet persistent prayer opens doors, maybe a new opportunity, a helping hand, or a source of income they never expected. God honors persistence, and He is faithful to answer when you refuse to quit. Each prayer is like a seed. The more you plant, the greater the harvest. In relationships, persistent prayer changes hearts and circumstances. A parent may pray daily for a rebellious child. A spouse may pray for a strained marriage. A friend may pray for reconciliation with someone they love. Sometimes change does not happen overnight, but God sees every tear, hears every whisper, and honors faith that refuses to give up. Persistent prayer softens hearts, restores broken relationships, and opens doors to reconciliation and healing that would otherwise remain closed. BR, consider health and healing. A person battling illness may pray every day, sometimes for months or years. At first, nothing seems to change. Yet, persistent prayer builds faith, strengthens the spirit, and aligns the body with God's healing power. Miracles often come not at the first prayer, but after faithful, continued, unrelenting communication with God. The woman who touched the hem of Jesus' garment demonstrates this principle. Her persistence brought her healing. Your prayers, persistent and faithful, have the same potential to unlock supernatural breakthroughs. Even in career and opportunity, persistent prayer is essential. A person may apply for a job, seek a promotion, or pursue a dream, and pray consistently for God's favor and guidance. Each prayer aligns their heart with God's timing, prepares them for opportunity, and strengthens their resolve. Opportunities often arrive after persistent seeking. Doors that seem permanently closed can swing open because persistence in prayer shows God your determination and faith. Daily life is full of examples. The young woman praying for a breakthrough in business, the man praying over his family every night, the student praying for wisdom in studies. These prayers, consistent and persistent, bring results beyond comprehension. Persistence is faith in action. It is refusing to accept defeat. It is speaking to the heavens and saying, God, I will not give up. I will not quit. I will trust you until I see your hand move. But persistence in prayer also strengthens character. It builds patience, endurance, and unwavering faith. When we persist in prayer, we develop a spirit that refuses to bow to fear, doubt, or discouragement. We become like Daniel, who prayed 3 times a day, even when a decree was passed against him. He persisted, and God delivered him from the lion's den. Your persistent prayers can deliver you from every lion in your life. Financial struggles, relational challenges, health issues, or spiritual battles. Beloved, prayer with persistence is the key to unlocking God's best in your life. It is not about how loud you pray or how many words you say. It is about consistency, faith, and refusing to let go until God moves. Every prayer you offer builds momentum, strengthens your spirit, and prepares you to receive your miracle. Even when the world says no, even when circumstances say impossible, your persistent prayers are planting seeds for a harvest that will amaze you. Beloved, I want to speak to you today about a truth that can change your life. Prayer is powerful, but persistent prayer is unstoppable. Many people pray once, maybe twice, and when nothing happens immediately, they give up, they stop believing, they say, God, I prayed, but nothing is changing. But let me tell you today, that is exactly when persistence in prayer matters most. Persistent prayer is the key that opens doors the world says are closed. The key that moves mountains when your human strength is gone. Key that unlocks miracles that only God can perform. Think about a farmer who plants seeds in his field. He waters them faithfully, he guards them, he tends to them every day, yet the rain may not come immediately and the sun may scorch the soil. If he gives up after the first week, there will be no harvest. But if he persists, the seed begins to sprout, grows, and eventually produces a harvest that is far greater than his effort alone. That is how persistent prayer works. You may not see results immediately, but if you refuse to stop, if you continue to pray, believe, and trust, God's power will manifest in your life at the perfect time. Or even in daily life, we see this truth. Imagine a student preparing for exams that seem impossible. They pray every morning for understanding, for focus, for clarity, yet at first the results are discouraging. But each prayer strengthens their mind, sharpens their focus, and aligns their heart with God's wisdom. The persistent prayers they offered before the exam become the invisible force that carries them to success. Persistence in prayer turns preparation into victory. Think about finances. A person may face mounting bills, debts, or unexpected expenses that seem impossible to overcome. At first, they may pray once or twice and feel hopeless. But persistent prayer every day, prayer with faith, prayer that refuses to let go, changes everything. God sees every prayer, every tear, every moment of faith. Sometimes He opens a door, sometimes He sends a helper, and sometimes He provides an unexpected source of blessing. The key is persistence. It is the continual seeking, asking, and knocking that brings divine intervention. In relationships, persistent prayer can bring restoration that seems impossible. A parent may pray daily for a wayward child. A spouse may pray for a broken marriage. A friend may pray for reconciliation with someone who has hurt them. At first, there may be no visible change. Hearts may remain hardened, doors may stay closed, and challenges may persist. But persistent prayer softens hearts, opens minds, and aligns circumstances with God's plan. What seems impossible to human eyes becomes possible when prayers are consistent, faithful, and persistent. Consider health and healing. A person may be facing illness, chronic pain, or limitations. The doctors may have spoken words of doubt, and despair may try to creep in, yet persistent prayer is the spiritual engine that moves mountains. Every prayer offered in faith, every plea made with endurance, builds a connection with the God who heals. Remember the woman with the issue of blood? She suffered for 12 years, yet she did not give up. She persisted. She reached out to touch Jesus' garment, and her healing came. That is the power of persistent prayer. It touches the invisible power of God and draws miracles into your life. Even in careers and opportunities, persistent prayer plays a vital role. You may pray for a promotion, a new job, or a business opportunity. Days and weeks pass, and it may seem like nothing is happening. But persistence ensures that you remain aligned with God's timing. You continue to improve your skills, to act with diligence, to trust God's plan. When the opportunity finally comes, you are ready, and the blessing is far greater than you could have imagined. Persistent prayer prepares you, positions you, and ensures that you receive God's best. Daily life provides countless examples. A woman praying for her children every morning, a man praying before work for guidance, a student praying before an exam. All these small, persistent acts of faith build momentum. Each prayer strengthens the spirit, cultivates hope, and aligns your life with God's power. Persistence is the fuel that keeps the prayer alive, the engine that drives miracles, and the hand that moves heaven. Persistence in prayer also builds character. It teaches patience, endurance, and unwavering trust in God. When you continue to pray, even when it is hard, even when you cannot see the result, your faith grows. You become like Daniel, who prayed 3 times a day despite the decree against him, and was delivered from the lion's den. Your persistent prayers can deliver you from every lion in your life: financial struggles, relationship challenges, health battles, and spiritual attacks. Beloved, prayer without persistence is like planting seeds and walking away. But persistent prayer is like tending to the garden every day, nurturing it, watering it, protecting it, until the harvest bursts forth in abundance. It is not about how many words you speak or how loud your prayers are. It is about consistent faith, steadfast hope, and refusal to let go until God moves. Every persistent prayer is a seed of miracle, a spark of breakthrough, a declaration that you will not accept defeat, and that you trust God to act on your behalf. Beloved, I want you to hear this deep in your heart. To walk in victory, you must trust in God's sovereignty. God is in control of everything. Nothing escapes His notice, nothing happens by accident, and nothing in your life is outside of His plan. We often see chaos, confusion, and setbacks, and think God is distant or unaware. But the truth is, He is on the throne, orchestrating every moment, every circumstance, and every outcome for your good. Trusting His sovereignty means believing that He is fully aware of your situation, fully capable of handling it, and fully committed to your ultimate restoration. Think about a pilot navigating through turbulent skies. Passengers may panic, the clouds may hide the sun, and the storm may rage, yet the pilot knows the route. The instruments are reliable, and the destination is certain. That is how life works when you trust God's sovereignty. Storms may come, confusion may arise, doors may close, yet God knows the path, and He will guide you to the right destination. Your trust in His control brings peace, even in the most uncertain moments. Even in daily life, we see this principle. Imagine a mother worried about her child's future, anxious about their safety, education, and well-being. Every decision she makes is laced with fear, and she feels powerless. Yet when she surrenders control to God, acknowledging His sovereignty, she experiences peace. She prays with confidence, makes wise choices, and trusts that God's hand is over her child's life. Trust in His sovereignty allows you to move forward with calm assurance, knowing the outcome is secure, even when the path is unclear. Now consider finances. You may have lost money, faced debt, or missed opportunities. You may wonder how you will survive, how you will pay the bills, or how you will recover. But God's sovereignty means He sees your need. He knows your future. And He is orchestrating resources in ways you cannot imagine. Perhaps the delayed promotion, the business setback, or the financial struggle is a part of God's plan to position you for a greater blessing than you could have achieved on your own. Trusting His control over your life allows you to walk in faith rather than panic, and to act with wisdom rather than fear. In relationships, trust in God's sovereignty is vital. Perhaps someone you love has hurt you, left you, or betrayed your trust. You may feel abandoned and question God's plan, but when you understand that God is sovereign, you realize that He allowed this moment for a purpose, perhaps to teach you a lesson, to redirect your life, or to protect you from something you cannot see. Trusting His control means letting go of anger, bitterness, and worry, knowing that He is working behind the scenes to bring reconciliation, healing, or divine redirection. Think about health. Someone may face illness, injury, or chronic pain. Doctors may have given their prognosis. Friends may have lost hope, and fear may threaten to overwhelm them. Yet trusting in God's sovereignty means acknowledging that He is still in control. He knows the number of your days, the extent of your suffering, and the exact moment of your restoration. Trust allows you to pray with confidence, to follow medical advice with faith, and to remain hopeful, knowing that your life is in God's capable hands. Even in career and opportunity, trust in God's sovereignty makes the difference. Perhaps you applied for your dream job, pursued a promotion, or sought a business opportunity, only to be overlooked or rejected. You may feel frustrated, confused, or angry. Yet when you trust that God is sovereign, you recognize that the timing, the positioning, and the opportunity are all in His hands. Perhaps the rejection is a blessing, redirecting you to a better path, a higher position, or a role where your talents and purpose will shine brighter. Trust in His control ensures that you remain patient, faithful, and prepared for the moment He opens the door. Daily life provides countless examples of God's sovereignty at work. A student praying for guidance in studies, a parent trusting God for their child's success, a worker relying on God to provide in times of financial strain. All of these examples demonstrate trust in His control. When you trust that God is sovereign, you do not have to manipulate circumstances, force outcomes, or panic over delays. You rest in the knowledge that God's timing, plan, and wisdom are perfect. Trusting God's sovereignty also builds faith and courage. It transforms fear into confidence, doubt into hope, and anxiety into peace. When you understand that every event in your life, every encounter, every challenge, every loss, and every blessing is under God's control, you no longer live in fear. You walk boldly, pray consistently, act wisely, and endure patiently. Your faith is anchored in the unshakable truth that God's will is perfect, His timing is flawless, and His plan is greater than anything you could imagine. Beloved, trusting in God's sovereignty is not passive. It does not mean ignoring problems or refusing to act. It means acting with wisdom, praying with confidence, and living with peace, knowing that God is in full control. It is the key to navigating storms, overcoming challenges, and stepping into the restoration, blessings, and miracles that God has prepared for you. Beloved, I want you to hear this today. Do not live for today alone. Look beyond today. Many people allow the circumstances of the present moment to define them. They see failure, loss, pain, or delay, and think that this is the end of their story. They measure their life by what is visible right now, forgetting that God's plan is bigger, deeper, and far beyond what the human eye can see. Looking beyond today is about having a vision that goes past the current struggle, trusting that God's hand is working in ways you cannot yet understand, and believing that your future holds restoration, victory, and abundance. Think about a farmer during winter. The ground is cold, the soil is bare, and it seems that nothing will grow. Yet the farmer knows that beneath the frozen earth, seeds are resting, preparing for spring. Though today looks empty, tomorrow holds the promise of harvest. Beloved, your life is like that winter field. Today may seem barren, your heart heavy, your dreams delayed, but God is planting seeds in the unseen, preparing a harvest that will exceed your imagination. Looking beyond today is trusting the promise of tomorrow, even when the present is difficult. Consider a student who failed an important test. The disappointment may feel crushing, and the temptation is to give up. But looking beyond today means understanding that this moment is not the full story. Perhaps this failure redirects them to a better path, a school, or a program that will prepare them for greater success than they originally imagined. God often uses what seems like setbacks to place us on the path of true destiny. Today's loss may be tomorrow's advantage. Even in relationships, looking beyond today is essential. You may be heartbroken from betrayal, rejection, or separation. You may feel as though love has abandoned you and that trust will never be restored. But God is at work in ways you cannot see. He may be preparing someone better, healing hearts, or teaching lessons that will strengthen you for a future relationship. If you focus only on today's pain, you miss the glory God is building for tomorrow. Look beyond today, for the best chapters of your story are often written after the storms have passed. In finances, looking beyond today is a powerful principle. You may be facing scarcity, debt, or job loss. Today may feel hopeless, your resources limited, and your future uncertain. But God specializes in turning scarcity into abundance. He often works quietly, preparing opportunities, guiding decisions, and aligning circumstances that will bring restoration far greater than what was lost. Persistent faith and a vision that goes beyond today are what allow you to see the blessings He has already prepared for you. Consider health. You may be struggling with illness, injury, or chronic pain. Today may feel limiting, your energy low, your hope fading. But looking beyond today means understanding that God's healing and restoration are coming. He is orchestrating medical interventions, lifestyle changes, and spiritual breakthroughs that will bring full recovery. Today's weakness is not your destiny. Tomorrow holds strength, vitality, and purpose when you trust Him. Even in careers and opportunities, looking beyond today is vital. Perhaps you were rejected for a promotion, a position, or an opportunity. Today may seem disappointing. your efforts unnoticed, your talents undervalued. But God's plan may involve placing you somewhere even greater, where your gifts, influence, and purpose will be fully realized. Looking beyond today allows you to remain patient, faithful, and diligent, trusting that God's timing is perfect and the best opportunities are yet to come. Daily life provides constant examples of this principle. A young mother may struggle to provide for her family, yet she prays and works faithfully, trusting that God will open doors she cannot yet see. A student may face academic challenges, but continues to study and pray, believing that God's provision and guidance will lead to success. A worker may face disappointment at their job, yet maintains integrity and faith, trusting that God will elevate them at the right time. Looking beyond today gives hope, strengthens faith, and builds resilience. Looking beyond today also builds vision. It trains your mind to focus on possibilities rather than problems, on divine promises rather than human limitations, and on God's eternal plan rather than temporary struggles. When you look beyond today, you refuse to be defined by setbacks. You refuse to be trapped by disappointments. You step into the future with courage, faith, and expectation, knowing that God's hand is at work and that the victories ahead are far greater than anything you have experienced so far. Beloved, today's challenges, disappointments, and pains are not the end of your story. They are temporary, fleeting moments designed to shape your character, strengthen your faith, and prepare you for the glory that is coming. Looking beyond today is trusting God's plan, believing in His promises, and walking with hope in the unseen. It is the difference between despair and faith, between giving up and persevering, between seeing limitation and experiencing the miraculous. Beloved, I want to speak to you about something that can change not only your life, but the lives of those around you. Your testimony inspires others. Many people think that their struggles, failures, or past mistakes are shameful, things to hide or forget. But I tell you today, your story, every trial, every loss, every victory, is a powerful tool that God can use to impact the world. When you share your testimony, you do more than recount what happened to you. You show the power of God to turn despair into hope, weakness into strength, and loss into abundance. Your story has the potential to awaken faith in someone who thought all hope was gone. Think about a young woman who lost her job and felt hopeless. She cried, prayed, and persevered, trusting God's timing. Later, she shared her story of how God opened a new door, a better opportunity, and provided in ways she could never have imagined. Someone listening to her testimony, perhaps sitting in despair in the same situation, hears those words and feels a spark of hope ignite within their soul. Her testimony became a bridge from hopelessness to faith. Beloved, your life experiences, no matter how painful, can be that bridge for someone else. Even in daily life, we see this principle. A man who overcame addiction may have felt trapped, ashamed, and hopeless. When he shares how God delivered him, how prayer and persistence restored his life, countless others struggling with similar see. Haynes hear that message and begin to believe in their own freedom. Your testimony validates the struggles of others while pointing them toward the one who can restore and deliver. Consider relationships. Perhaps someone was betrayed by a loved one, abandoned or heartbroken. If they allow God to heal them and then share their story of restoration, reconciliation, and forgiveness, they give hope to others who are in the midst of heartbreak. Someone who is struggling may hear that testimony and realize, if God could restore her life, He can restore mine too. Your testimony becomes a living example of God's faithfulness, showing that no loss is permanent and no situation is beyond His power. Even in finances, your testimony has weight. Maybe you lost money, faced business failure, or were in debt, yet God turned it around. When you share your journey of trust, persistence, and breakthrough, you encourage those in financial despair to take steps of faith, to pray, and to believe in God's provision. Your testimony shows them that miracles are possible, that restoration can be greater than loss, and that God's timing is perfect. Speak about health and healing. Someone who has battled illness, injury, or limitation and has been restored can inspire countless others. Their story, when shared, ignites faith in those who feel hopeless. Perhaps a person is told by doctors that their situation is impossible, but hearing someone else's testimony of healing brings hope, courage, and determination to keep praying and believing. Your testimony can become the reason someone refuses to give up. Even in careers, your story matters. Perhaps you were overlooked, rejected, or underestimated, yet through prayer, patience, and faith, you achieved your breakthrough. Sharing how you overcame challenges, stayed faithful, and trusted God despite circumstances inspires others in their own struggles. Your life becomes proof that setbacks are temporary and that God's hand is always moving, even when invisible to human eyes. Daily life provides countless examples of the power of testimony. A parent encouraging other parents with how God helped them raise faithful children. A teacher inspiring students with stories of overcoming doubt and failure. A friend encouraging someone through heartbreak by sharing personal experiences. All these moments demonstrate how one person's testimony can spark hope, faith, and action in the lives of others. Beloved, your testimony also strengthens the speaker. Every time you recount how God brought you through, your faith is renewed, your gratitude grows, and your spirit is lifted. Sharing your story is an act of worship. It glorifies God and magnifies His power, reminding you and others that He is faithful to those who trust Him. When you testify, you are not only encouraging others, you are also declaring God's greatness and acknowledging His work in your own life. Your testimony can even create a ripple effect. One person hears your story, is inspired, and begins to act in faith. That person then shares their own testimony, and the impact multiplies, spreading hope, faith, and courage across communities, cities, and even nations. Your story is never just about you. It is about the lives God can touch through your obedience and courage to be our beloved. Do not underestimate the power of your testimony. Every trial, every loss, every challenge, every triumph you have experienced has the potential to inspire, encourage, and transform someone else. Your life is a living sermon, a testimony of God's faithfulness, His timing, His power, and His love. When you speak of what God has done for you, you ignite faith in the hearts of those who are listening, showing them that no situation is hopeless, no mountain too high, and no setback too great for God to overcome. Beloved, now I want you to hear this and let it sink deep into your heart. God is not finished with you. He is not done with your life. The losses you have endured, the pain you have carried, the struggles that have weighed you down, none of it is wasted. Every tear, every disappointment, every unanswered prayer has been preparing you for a breakthrough so great that it will leave the world in awe. Remember, God's timing is perfect. He works in ways we cannot see, orchestrating every detail of your life to bring restoration, abundance, and favor that is far greater than what you have lost. Do not allow temporary setbacks to define your destiny. Do not let the storms of life convince you that your story is over. The truth is, your story is only beginning to unfold, and the next chapter will be filled with miracles, breakthroughs, and blessings beyond imagination. You may have lost people, opportunities, or possessions, but God is in the business of multiplying and restoring. He takes what the enemy meant for harm and turns it into glory. He turns pain into purpose, loss into learning, and struggle into strength. I want you to understand this. Faith is not a suggestion, it is your weapon. When you believe in God's promises, when you trust Him with your heart, your finances, your health, and your relationships, you activate a supernatural power in your life. Faith opens the doors that seem permanently locked. Faith brings healing to what is broken. Faith turns the impossible into the inevitable. Do not underestimate what happens when you step forward in faith. Even when the world says you cannot, even when your circumstances seem overwhelming. And hear me clearly, your testimony matters. The struggles you have survived, the mountains you have climbed, the storms you have endured, they are not just for you. Your testimony is a beacon of hope for someone who is still in the dark. When you rise and declare what God has done in your life, you inspire courage in the fearful, faith in the doubtful, and hope in the hopeless. Your story has the power to transform lives, to ignite dreams, and to awaken faith in people who thought all doors were closed. You may not realize it, but your life is a living miracle in progress, and God wants you to shine it as a light to the world. Beloved, do not give up. Do not stop believing. Do not allow disappointment, delay, or doubt to steal the miracle that God has prepared for you. He is faithful. He is mighty. He is able to restore everything that has been lost and to bring blessings that are far greater than you can imagine. Remember the words of the scripture, those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. This is your promise. This is your destiny. And this is your breakthrough. So I say to you today, rise up in faith. Step into the plan God has for you. Declare that loss is not the end, that storms are not the conclusion, and that setbacks are only setups for a divine comeback. Speak life over your circumstances. Plant seeds of faith. Pray persistently and trust His timing. Believe that the restoration coming to you is not just a replacement. It is multiplied, it is amplified, and it is glorious. You are chosen, you are favored, and you are destined to experience God's supernatural power in ways that will leave people around you amazed. Beloved, lift your eyes, lift your hearts, and lift your spirit. The best is not behind you, it is ahead of you. God is about to turn your mourning into dancing, your struggle into strength, and your loss into a testimony of His greatness. Step forward with confidence, speak boldly with faith, and live courageously with expectation, because your God is faithful, your God is mighty, and your God will never fail you. The miracle is coming, the restoration is on its way, and your life will shine as a testimony that glorifies Him forever.